Hey, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches on a particularly blustery Chicago winter day. You're probably going to hear the howling of the wind, and believe me, I want to get inside as soon as possible. But first, I want to do a quick wristwatch check. And why am I doing it outside? Because look at this dial. You're not gonna see this dial look so gorgeous in any other light. Let's flip the camera around so I can film it a little bit in the gorgeous natural daylight, the James Cameron Sea Dweller, and then let's talk a little bit more in private. Oh my God, the dial. This is just a spectacular dial, which you really have to see in natural daylight to fully appreciate it. The blue fading to black dial. And I'm just gonna start turning a little bit here so you can see as the sunlight angle changes on this James Cameron deep sea, how the blue starts to disappear and it'll just fade into the black. Once we get into the shadows, boy, it just kind of disappears, but it is in natural light where this just completely shines and is utterly spectacular. Anyway, screw this, it's freezing outside. Let's get indoors and talk in greater detail about what's on my mind today. Okay, so why are we in the kitchen? Well, heck, it's because it's like probably the nicest room in my whole house. Anyway, yeah, the James Cameron. I've made a lot of videos about this watch before, and it is not really the subject of this video so much, although it definitely comes into play. So let me tell you what's going on in my mind. First, by way of background, I don't know how many watches I own. I probably should. I have been swearing to you guys for over a year now that I would do a state of the collection video. So you can beg and plead all you want in the comments for that. Oh, by the way, please lick, squash, squish, subscribe, the like button, the subscribe button, the little bell button, all that nonsense. If you do that, I swear I will make more videos. And we can do this again. At any rate, back to my weirdness. So one of my issues is I own a bunch of watches. My best guess is somewhere between 15 and 20, okay? And okay, well, why is that an issue? Because like if I keep them all at home, then I tend to rotate through them madly. I obsess. I get stuck in this like psychological mental loop where I can't quit obsessing on what watch I'm gonna wear, and I tend to change them like, oh dude, I'll change watches as often as 3 times a day is nothing. 4 or 5 times a day I will change watches. And it's excessive. This is just like nonsense. This is too much thought and angst going into the watch process. Those of you who watch Jeffrey McMahon, shout out. I think he's one of the few guys who sort of completely understands the level of sickness that this involves, because it can actually become sort of like detrimental to my state of mind. So I have taken certain draconian steps to ensure my mental health, and one of them has been to lock up almost all of my watches in the bank, and that really helps. But then, I'll keep 3, 4, 5 in the house, and I've decided that that's even too much. Because if I do that, I just sort of like rotate madly through them. So what I have committed to doing lately, and it seems to be working out fine, is making this my primary watch. So I'm wearing the James Cameron most of the time. And why wouldn't I, guys? It is the biggest, baddest, meanest watch that Rolex makes in stainless steel, okay? Biggest, baddest, heaviest, most macho. It's really the badassest watch. I made up a word there, but it is in terms of what Rolex makes in steel. If you disagree with that, throw it in the comments. Tell me, what does Rolex make that's meaner than this in steel? Now you get into gold and platinum watches, and maybe the weight is equivalent or higher, than this watch, but you got to go into the precious metals before you can exceed the sheer beefiness of the deep sea dweller. Okay, so I have really committed to wearing that as my primary watch, and the more I do that, the more I wear that solo for almost every single activity, the calmer my state of mind is. Now, mind you, it takes a lot of discipline, because in reality, what I want to be doing is flipping through watches, on a constant basis. But I've just committed to saying no. It's like there's that last piece of cheesecake in the fridge, and you shouldn't eat it. Now, putting watches in the bank box is like putting that piece of cheesecake in the freezer. Makes it somewhat less tempting, but you still have access. And if you get crazy enough, you'll eat it frozen. So I am a little still crazy, but I'm finding that the commitment to wearing one watch is taking me ever closer to horological tranquility, which is sort of a nirvana enlightened place that I'm not sure I will ever fully attain until my deathbed. Oh God, what if on my deathbed, the Dalai Lama meets me there with like a drawer full of Rolexes? Like, all right, I should really calm down and not worry about what's going to happen on my deathbed, you know, but like this is the scary place that is the mind of Mark Vlogs Watches. Okay, so this is what I am wearing principally. Look how gorgeous that looks. I'm making love with my eyes to the image of my wrist. And you know what, guys? I gotta say, I may not be the best looking guy in the world. In fact, I certainly don't think so. But look at that wrist. You know what? If I weren't me, I would ask that wrist out on a date. And come to think of it, I probably do on a regular basis. Okay, enough of that, or YouTube is gonna, like, you know, censor me. So look, on my kitchen table, I have laid out the only other two watches that I have in the house. Let's take a quick look at them, discuss, and then, you know, we'll call it a day. Well, guys, what you have here is the Rolex GMT Batman. Let's get it into the light so you can really appreciate the blueness of that bezel. Well, I'm gonna have a little problem. No, I'm not going back outside to show you. The heck with it. I'll just do my best to get into the sunlight. When you catch this bezel at the right angle, it's intensively blue in a heart-stopping way. I mean, it's really gorgeous. Oh, look at that. Now, mind you, you change the angle or get out into the shadows, and it just equivalents immediately almost to the regular black GMT. Well, I can still see the blue there. In fact, the changing blue on this is so intense and amazing that I made a whole video on the changing blue bezel. So, you know, go back in my archives and have a look at that. But I'm keeping this watch in the house, and I'm primarily wearing this guy. But if I feel like being fancy, you know, then I go to the Batman. And the reason is this is an all matte. You can see it's all a little bit scratchy. This is an all matte finish, except for the flanks of the watch, which are polished. But otherwise, the stainless steel bracelet is all satin polish, whereas the GMT is a smaller watch, 44 millimeters here. Boy, I need to polish up, huh? 44 millimeters here, 40 millimeters here. Satin flanks to the bracelet, but that polished center links gives it a sheen that makes it, you know, kind of fancy. This is a tool watch, also oyster case, triple lock crown, so it's good to depth. And therefore, it's quite a robust, rugged watch. It's not one you have to worry about a whole lot. But for me, this is about as fancy as it gets. That's daily wear, fancy wear. And then I keep this ball watch in the house too. What I really like about it is that it has tritium tubes in there. You can kind of see the hour markers are all actually raised, applied tritium tubes, tritium gas in there on the hands. It's a chronograph, just has the 7750 wobbly guy in there. But it's still a really interesting watch. Mind you, super aggressive. Look at the design cues here. It's like highly aggressive watch. So it's not nearly as classy as you know, pretty much any Rolex, even this giant tool watch of a Rolex. Not nearly as classy. Definitely very aggressive. Makes a huge impression, especially with that keeper that keeps the crown. It's part of the crown guard, but what it really does, I think, is it reminds you whether your crown is opened or closed. So you can't actually close that unless your crown is all the way down. So once you've done that, you know you're safe. It's an interesting watch. It's actually rated so that you can push these pushers. You can unscrew them and use them underwater, and you can even push them underwater, which is extremely unusual for a chronograph. I'm not doing it, but you could. And it has a rotating dive bezel chronograph, day-date function, which I really like, but this primarily serves as my sleeping watch, because I gotta sleep in a watch, don't I? And with the tritium, you can read it all night long, no problem. You never need to charge it. It just glows for 25 years. It's a substantial watch, but it doesn't give me wrist fatigue. And the reason for that is this watch is a mix of titanium and stainless steel. So you can see the titanium links with the steel center links. And so this watch, it's not a lightweight by any means, but boy, if it was all steel, it would just be an exhausting watch to wear. This, I don't know exactly what this wears, but this is about as heavy as I care to go for a daily wear. And at night, I would say these guys, they seem to weigh about the same. So I'm definitely developing the wrist muscles. So what do I keep in the house? Well, This is it right now, guys. This is the collection. I'm primarily wearing the deep sea, but I am keeping the Batman for when I feel like going fancy, or for whatever reason, if my wrist gets tired, that's the watch that I put on. Or then I'll put on that ball on the right at night. Or maybe I'll tend to work once in a while on the ball too. So if I'm doing anything where I think I might, bang up a watch, it would be the ball, that I would want to wear. Well, anyway, this is Mark from Mark Vlogs Watches. Thanks for sharing all this time with me. Please remember to like and subscribe. Put anything in the comments that you'd like to carry the discussion forward. And hey, it's Goldberg, peacing out.